Hello. Okay, so we're starting again at Sefaria.org that we're going to pull up their library and we're going to read through some Talmud. So I just want to start here at point one to give you the chance to know how to pull this up yourself. So if you're on the Sefaria website and you're on their really cool homepage here, you can go up to their selection bar. Sometimes people call this a burger bar up in the left-hand corner. Grab that. It's going to pull up the library, go down to the section on Talmud. Today, we are going to be in Menachot 29. And you remember, Talmud always starts on page 2 because Torah starts with a bet, not with an aleph. Go for our last video if you want to see the little bit more of an explanation on that. So, whoops, I'm going past it. We need 29b. Okay, so here's the fun part about Talmud in some ways. See how it starts in the middle of a sentence? You might need to scroll up just a little bit to get the explanation here because the tractates are divided in interesting ways sometimes. So you'll see that some of this is coming off of discussion of what is acceptable as far as whether a letter can be written correctly or incorrectly, or if there can be a gap in something, or if it might nullify one's phylacteries, your tefillin, if you are putting something on your door for the mezuzah, at what point a certain mistake might negate the validity of that mezuzah scroll. Those kinds of things are really interesting, and you can find that if you want to read this content. Menachot has a lot more information. That's in Menachot 29a. If you want to back up to that, we're going to start in B, and we're actually going to jump down a little bit farther. There's just one thing. Of course, any of this you can go and read on your own. It's really cool. You'll find that there are different points all throughout Talmud. Some we're going to talk about Hebrew letters in different locations. I've tried to pull up some of the most prominent ones for you and done a little bit of the work for you in this way. There's always a chance for extra credit as far as just what you can do on your own. So let's move forward because there was one specific thing that I really wanted to go through together. You'll see here that quickly we'll breeze by this. When Moses ascended on high, he found the Holy One, blessed be he, sitting and tying crowns on the letters of the Torah. Moses said before God, Master of the universe, who is preventing you from giving the Torah without these additions? God said to him, There is a man who is destined to be born after several generations, and Akiva ben Yosef is his name. He is destined to derive from each and every thorn of these crowns mounds upon mounds of halachot. It is for his sake that the crowns must be added to the letters of Torah. Interesting. So let's keep going. As we move down, we're going to go ahead and talk more about the crowns on the top of the letters, and we will talk about that a little bit. Okay. The Gemara continues its discussion of the crowns on the letters of the Torah. Rava says 7 letters require 3 crowns. Okay, so you'll see some of them have the one little antenna, as one thing put it, and the other have the 3-prong crowns. Those are the letters Shin, Ayin, Tet, Nun, Zayin, Gimel, and Tzadi. Rav Ashi says, I have seen that the exacting scribes of the study hall of Rav would put a hump-like stroke on the roof of the letter Chet, and they would suspend the left leg of the letter He, i.e., they would ensure that it is not joined to the roof of the letter. Now, I hope you know what we're talking about enough with the Hebrew, but this is something really cool that we're going to pull up here. As you can see, if you're watching the visual on the screen, this is a website called sofer.co.uk /aleph bet. Super cool. Go click around, have a lot of fun in there. One of the options it has, if you pull up the individual letters, is that it draws them stroke by stroke in a little animation on screen, and it describes the sort of strokes and things that you want to look out for as you're creating each letter. It's super interesting, and it gives you a really good understanding of how much care is given to the individual writing of every little tiny stroke of these letters. It's fascinating. So, moving forward, when we're talking about with this one, is they're saying with the Chet. Now, you may not have seen this before, but this is how it's going to appear in the scroll. So first, its two legs should be in the shape of two zayins. And the zayin that is on the right side to make the and the zayin that is on the right side, it is right to make the corner of the head curved on the right side. See how they did that? It's a little curved there, and it dips in on the right side. And the zayins should be apart from each other, at most a quill thickness. You're going to use your quill and the width of it to measure a lot of the proportion of your letters. And they should be joined together with humps, sort of a high roof. That's the part that Talmud is referring to right now. And one makes the staff like a big tag, but big tag, because we're talking about the tagin, for it on the head of the left leg and not in the middle. See how when it pops up, the tag is right there, just to the left a little bit. This letter is written very differently by the Ari, who uses a vav and a zayin, and the Sephardim, who make the roof one piece without the humps, as we are used to seeing a chet in print. So you may not have seen a chet like this. The Sephardim is going to be when you're seeing that with the one block, and that's why Talmud is saying, I saw these guys and they actually put this thing on the top of it. What's that about? So there's this whole school that describes that. And the one you're seeing here, is two zayins, but there is a zayin and a vav version that you can find. Now, let's look at the difference here. Doesn't that kind of look vavish? Well, I'm going to show you a vav to show you the difference, because no, we're going to pop right back up here. The letter vav. One must make its head short and no more than the thickness of a quill, so that it does not look like a resh. Can't be too long on top. And its leg should be as long as two quill thicknesses, so that it doesn't look like a yud, but do not make it too long, lest it looks like a final nun to a child. And for this reason, it is also good that its head is rounded on the right side, so it doesn't resemble a zayin and be invalid. Aha, see? It has to be rounded on the right and not dipping in like we saw with the zayin, because and also it can't be solid if you were to see just the zayin by itself. See, one must be careful that its leg not be so long. Excuse me. One must be careful that its leg not be long, so that it doesn't look like a final nun and be invalid. We're speaking of the zayin now. Therefore, its leg should be no longer than two quill thicknesses, and its head should pass over on both sides, so that it doesn't resemble a vav. I'm so sorry for my stumbling here, guys. If you're looking at the zayin, the body of it comes down in the middle, so that it doesn't look like a vav. That's one of the ways you can tell the difference. And it should be squared off with 3 tagin on its head. Vav is rounded, has no tagin, and the leg of it comes off the right side. Zayin has a blockhead, 3 tagin on the top, and its leg comes down the middle. So, if you're writing then the chet, see the left hand zayin looks a whole lot like the individual zayin. Only it has only one tagin, one tag. But the right hand has this little divot. You round the side of it, but you have to have that little dip so that it doesn't look like a vav. However, apparently there is a school by Ari who does use a vav. Now, this little caret that they put in on top, all that to say, is what we're talking about here in Menachot 29b. Rava explains, they would put a hump-like stroke on the roof of the letter Chet, as if to thereby say, the Holy One, blessed be He, lives, Chai, right? Starts with the letter Chet. He lives, Chai, in the heights of the universe. Okay, interesting little explanation as to why they would heighten the letter in that way. Okay, now we're about to start talking about the hay. This is the one that we're really, I mean, it's so funny and it's so interesting. So let's talk about the hay. One must make for it at first a small tog above on the left side. Okay, so we've got our little crown up on the left hand side. And at the back, one should be careful initially that it is squared like a dalet. See? So we've got dalet just right here before the letter before hey. And it's squared off at the top, so hey's going to look the same way. And not rounded like a resh. Let's jump all the way down and go look at a resh real quick in case you're not familiar. Okay, there's our resh. See how it just goes whoop and it's rounded and then it has its leg comes down. Just one clean stroke at the top. Hey is squared off so it doesn't look like that. And dalet is squared off so it doesn't look like that. One does not have to make it a heel like with the dalet, only that it will be a sharp letter. However, the custom is to do this, kol sofrim. So it's saying this little foot here that you give the dalet is a leg in a simple line inclined to the right, and then it should have a small tag on top of its roof. Okay, so that little notch back that the dalet has is something that you can include on the hay, but don't have to, basically. And the stroke inside the letter should not be close to the roof. Rather, there should be a division between them so that an average person can perceive it well from a Sofer Torah. The stroke should initially be thin above and a bit fatter below, like Yud upside down. And initially, it should slant a little at the bottom, so to the right side and not to the left, lest it resemble a tav. So see, it's when it swivels back in, it's going to go kind of inward to the right, because otherwise its foot might make it look like a tav, which a tav is the very last letter, and see, its foot is going to go out to the left like that. Okay. And the length of the stroke should be no less the length of a yud with its underneath prickle. So a yud, if you were writing that on its own, has this little poke up at the top, and that's kind of what it's talking about in the hay. Is when you do the upside down, you can have this little tiny tag where it's a little pointy and it kind of comes up on both sides like that. Not quite as dramatically as the representation for the other one, but it can be there as it says it's underneath prickle. So the question in Talmud is, why doesn't this little leg on the left-hand side connect to the roof of the hay? And they would suspend the left leg of the letter Hey, as Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya asked Rabbi Ami, what is the meaning of that which is written? Trust in the Lord forever, for in the Lord, B'yah, is God, an everlasting Olamim, rock. Isaiah 26:4. Okay, let's stop there. Isaiah 26:4 says, trust ye in the Lord forever, for in the Lord, Yod He Vav He, is everlasting strength. Okay, that's the King James translation here. And so what they're pointing out is that it says B'yah. Okay? Bitchu Badonai, you can read that, trust in the Lord forever. For in the Lord, B'yah Adonai Tzur Olamim. This is the part in question here. It's saying, why wouldn't you just say, Ya Adonai Tzur Olamim? Why do you need to say B'yah? Okay? Rab Ami said to him, anyone who puts their trust in the Holy One, blessed be He, will have Him as his refuge in this world and in the world to come. This is alluded to in the word Olamim, which can also mean worlds. Okay? It can be universe, everlasting, or worlds. Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya said to Rabbi Ami, I was not asking about the literal meaning of the verse. This is what poses a difficulty for me. What is written about that which is written, for in the Lord B'yah, and it is not written, for the Lord, Yah. Why doesn't it just say, trust in the Lord forever, for the Lord is God, an everlasting rock? Why does it say, for in the Lord is God, an everlasting rock? Rav Ashi responded, it is as Rabbi Yehuda bar Rabbi Eli taught. The verse, for in the Lord B'yah is God, an everlasting rock, Tzur Olamim, is understood as follows. The term Tzur Olamim can also mean creator of worlds. Interesting. Okay, let's track that down real quick. So check this out. If you pull up Tzur, rock, cliff, block of stone. Okay? That's what tzur means, but it comes from a root, also pronounced tzur, which means to bind, besiege, confine, or cramp, to show hostility, so to kind of, be like a rock. And it also means to form, fashion, or delineate. And so the Gesenius' Hebrew Chaldee Lexicon, I love this resource, I highly recommend it. If you pull that up here, you can see that form, to form, is derived from the idea of cutting. So by cutting and straightening and compressing and doing all of these other things that this word can kind of mean, you might be forming and creating something. So presumably Tzur Olamim is not just everlasting rock, but Tzur Olamim can be creator of worlds. Okay. So the term Tzur Olamim can also mean creative worlds. These letters, Yod and He, that constitute the word Yah, are referring to the two worlds that the Holy One, blessed be He, created. One, B, the letter He, with the letter He, and the other one, B, the letter Yod, with the letter Yod. And I do not know whether the world to come was created with the letter Yod and this world was created with the letter He, or whether this world was created with the letter Yod and the world to come was created with the letter He. When the verse states, these are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created, B'hi ba'are'am, Genesis 2:4, let's pull that up. These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created, in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. The word that they're pointing out here for you is B'hibar'am, okay? B'hibar'am, right here. This one, it's saying, do not read it as B'hibar'am, meaning when they were created. Rather, read it as B'he Bara'am, meaning he created them with the letter He. Okay, check this out. So bet as a letter grammatically can mean in or with. Okay, it's one of those prepositions. So as a prepositional phrase, it's saying here that when they were created, Bahar Ba'am, but he's saying translated as with He Bar'am, they were created. Interesting understanding with that. Okay. He created them with the letter He. This verse demonstrates that the heaven and the earth, i.e., this world, were created with the letter He, and therefore the world to come must have been created with the letter Yod. And for what reason was this world created specifically with the letter He? It is because the letter He, which is open on its bottom, has a similar appearance to a portico. What's a portico? Like a porch, you know, big terraced opening like this. So I had to go find a picture myself just to get a good idea of it. So it's saying, that's kind of what a hay would resemble, which is open on one side. It alludes to this world where anyone who wishes to leave may leave, i.e., every person has the ability to choose to do evil. And what is the reason that the left leg of the letter He is suspended, i.e., is not joined to the roof of the letter? Why is there this little spot up there, this little gap? It is because if one repents, he is brought back in through the opening at the top. The Gemara asks, but why not let him enter through the same way that he left? The Gemara answers, that would not be effective, since one requires assistance from heaven in order to repent. In accordance with the statement of Reish Lakish, as Reish Lakish says, what is the meaning of that which is written? If it concerns the scorners, he scorns them, but to the humble he gives grace. Proverbs 3:34. Concerning one who comes in order to become pure, he is assisted from heaven, as it is written, but to the humble he gives grace. Concerning one who comes to become impure, he is provided with an opening to do so. The Gemara asks, and what is the reason that the letter He has a crown on its roof? The Gemara answers, the Holy One, blessed be He, says, if a sinner returns, repenting for his sin, I tie a crown for him from above. The Gemara asks, for what reason was the world to come created specifically with the letter Yod, the smallest letter in the Hebrew alphabet? The Gemara answers, it is because the righteous of the world are so few. And for what reason is the left side of the top of the letter Yod bent downward? Let's take a look at that. So this one's actually kind of interesting. See these little notches that they create at the top? I've seen some representations of the Hebrew letters where they really dip down and will have a little bit more of a dramatic slope rather than just have that top little notch there. But that dip is what they're referring to in the letter in this tractate. For what reason is the left side of the top of the letter Yod bent downward? It is because the righteous who are in the world to come hang their heads in shame, since the actions of one are not similar to those of another. In the world to come, some of the righteous will be shown to be of greater stature than others. Rav Yosef says, Rav states these two matters with regard to scrolls, and in each case a statement is taught in a baraita that constitute a refutation of his ruling. One is that which Rav says, a Torah scroll that contains 2 errors on each and every column may be corrected, but if there are 3 errors on each and every column, then it shall be interred. Okay, so see how quickly we have changed subjects? This is where Talmud can get a little bit confusing. So they're done talking about the letters now. You learned what you needed to learn. Let's move on. So let's keep talking about the scroll and whether or not those letters are written incorrectly. Now that we've given you all of the ways to write them correctly, let's talk about when they're not, shall we? So what it's saying, this is actually really interesting. There is there's a sort of rumor out there that a sofer, a writer of a Torah scroll, can't make a mistake. This is not true. They correct their mistakes all the time. In fact, this here shows that mistakes can be made. And what they're saying is that a Torah scroll that contains 2 errors on each and every column, you can go back in and fix that if you want to. If there are 3 errors, you can't fix that. It shall be interred. But keep reading, because this says, and a statement is taught in a baraita that constitutes a refutation of his ruling. A Torah scroll that contains 3 errors on every column may be corrected, but if there are 4 errors on every column, then it shall be interred. A Tanah taught in a Baraita that if the Torah scroll contains 1 complete column with no errors, it saves the entire Torah scroll, and it is permitted to correct the scroll rather than interring it. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Shemuel bar Marta says in the name of Rav, and this is the halacha only when the majority of the scroll is written properly and not full of errors. So do you see? To say you have to do this, this is the halacha, this is what Talmud says. Talmud doesn't agree with itself. Talmud is a compilation of a couple people who have their own opinions, and that's great. So keep in mind here, this is some of the interesting depth that comes in with each of these letters. Like I said, I would very, very much encourage you to go and read through the explanations of every single one of these letters. And it's fascinating to read through how much care is given to each one. Specifically, you can see some of these that are written in a way you might not even realize, like the pay, for example, has a bit on the middle, on the inside of it. See? And they're going to draw the last one here. Boop. There's your bit in the white space. And it'll explain all of the final forms. It'll go through each letter. It talks about the tagin on top. And I enjoyed reading all of this. I'm sure that you will too. And I hope that you guys are a little bit more intrigued as to the depth of the Hebrew letters and how much can be found, especially in Talmud, for those who have taken the time to have the discussions for us. Have a great day.